Hey people. So, I did a thing. I did a really weird thing. I'm just like, trying to brace you for it. Cause this is weird. Like, even for me, this is kind of weird. You want to see the weird thing I did? Are you sure you're ready for this?
Yo, listen up, here's the short.
Heyo people, I blew myself. Heyo people, I'm Crash Thompson and welcome to another edition of FIMI, or fuck, I missed it. This time out, we've got 40 albums that I missed all throughout Q1 of 2020. Half of them picked by me, and the other half picked by the lovelies over at the CTXO Discord. That's a one-time $10 pledge to get in. If you want to kind of get in on those shenanigans, feel free. We have fun over there. But for now, let's just go right ahead and hop on into this. This is our first proper FIMI that we've done since the rebrand, and well, one thing I've kind of caught some flack from people about is me, saying I'm going to cover all this pop and country and all this other stuff I didn't cover when I was the rock critic. I haven't really kept my word on that too terribly well. Well, this vid kind of makes up for that. Strap in, people. We got a wild ride this time out. White girl wedding music? I mean, I don't even necessarily mean that in like a bad way. It's dreamy and blissful, and the lyrics are like super lovey-dovey and romantic, and I mean, hey, white girls gotta get married too, you know? There's nothing wrong with it, but at the same time, there's also nothing particularly exceptional about it. It's basically okay. I mean, I remember when these guys originally broke out, they felt like they were so much bigger of a goddamn deal than they are now, but, like, I don't know, like, after hearing this, I think it's safe to say Echosmith is officially not a big goddamn deal anymore, but for what it is, I mean, you could do worse. Like with Echosmith, I guess there's nothing inherently wrong with this album. There's a couple of okay tracks on this thing, but I don't know, for the most part, this thing just bored me to tears. It's dozy as hell, and I forgot this even came out. Did you remember she released an album this year? I sure as hell didn't remember. Why did any of us care about Selena Gomez? I mean, I'm coming into her stuff super late here. Why did y'all care about her again? I don't know. This album especially did not give me any reason to care about Selena Gomez. Again, it's not like red shit or anything, but like, This was actually an album I caught the people on the Discord server randomly talking about, so I figured I'd kind of put my ear to the ground and check this out. And, how do I put this? Political ska punk filtered through cabaret lounge music with dashes of jazz and klezmer music on top of it. Like, imagine if The Living End and Five Iron Frenzy got into a great big fuckball with cherry poppin' daddies and cake and... Okay, if you liked Wioza Collective from the last couple of videos back, definitely put this on your register too. This was some damn interesting stuff, I gotta say. Okay, even before I started paying more attention to hip-hop, I remember people talking this thing up like it was gonna be the next coming of rap Jesus or something. I remember this being a big fucking deal. I caught onto the hype for this record via osmosis. Like, I didn't even pay attention to a lot of rap back in the day, but fuck, people would not stop talking about this one. And now that it's finally out... Really? really? This was what the hype? I mean, don't get me wrong, again, it's got like a handful of decent, okay tracks on it, but man, this thing is just beyond bloated. There is so much filler on this thing, it feels like it was fucking shipped through Amazon, and like, the Alien interlude tracks, like, I don't know. Again, I'm not the expert when it comes to Lil Uzi and stuff like this. I'll admit to that, but like, was the hype worth it? Again, I don't see what the hype was about. I really don't. Indie rock. And, that's about it. I mean, it's well played, decent sounding indie rock, but I don't know, people. I've heard 1,000 other indie rock albums that sound exactly like this, and I'll probably hear 1,000 more before I'm dead. It just doesn't stick out. A big problem that 2020 has kind of had so far is that so many albums are just fine. They're not terribly bad. They're not terribly good. They're just kind of there and they exist and whatever. This is also fine. It has moments I enjoyed. It's not dreadful, but like, I don't know. There is just also nothing at all memorable about this. And I can almost guarantee you I will completely forget about this album by the time what was I talking about? Okay, while you could say that 2020's been kind of a boring year so far, I can't call this album boring. What I can call it is piss. Like, Jesus goddamn Christ. I honestly thought this band wouldn't be able to get worse than Medicate. How do you even do that? How do you put out an album as bad as Medicate? But this record sincerely makes that one look like Aladdin fucking sane. Look, people, I could just go on and on and on about this record, and really, it doesn't even deserve it. It's such a abysmal fucking record, even for a band with such low expectations as Theory. This is fucking dreadful, and I am positive I'll have more to say about it when it inevitably hits my worst of the year list. But people, just like, there's a song about Charlottesville on here, because that is what these are the motherfuckers you want to hear social commentary from. These knuckleheads. Just people, if this thing doesn't make a high entry on my worst of the year list, we are in for a really rough year. You know, here's something I'll bet you probably never thought you'd hear out of me. I can say that this is probably the best Meghan Trainor record we've ever gotten. I'm serious. Like, this is probably the best record that Meghan Trainor is able to produce. I feel like this is her peak. And it still sucks. People, even Meghan Trainor at her least obnoxious and most focused is still just horrifyingly obnoxious and crazy unfocused. This is Karen core of the worst kind, in that it's obnoxious and unfocused, but it's also boring as piss. Just, at least Meghan Trainor's other records aren't fucking abysmally boring. Like, people, I'm sorry, but if this is the end of Meghan Trainor's career, if this is the very last thing we hear from her, I am not going to shed one single tear. See ya! A very moody, very ominous, and blissfully atmospheric record from Destroyer here. This is a little bit of a kooky record. It sounds like a mix of like, oh, this is gonna sound so weird, 80s soundtrack fodder mixed in with 2000s synthwave stuff. Stuff like Air and Massive Attack. It's all so relaxing, but also just the tiniest bit unsettling and even disturbing in moments. Like, I could easily imagine this music playing over like the end credits to a PS2 era Silent Hill. Not gonna be everyone's thing, but if you need something chill but mildly spooky to kind of help you study or work, you know, this will fill a slot for you, man. Very solid stuff. You know, credit where it's due. This album is way better than that second self-titled that came out a few years earlier. I will wholeheartedly attest to that. And you know, it also does sound like the guys know how to capitalize on what their strengths are. The acoustic, slower moments on that record were the more tolerable parts of it, I guess. So, okay, here's a record that's just nothing but that. That's gotta be good, right? A, not necessarily. And B, man, this album, it just highlights the very sad state of this band. They are just in a, what I can only describe as a piss-dribbling sense of old age. These guys are making grandpa music. This is just aged and bloated and weary. Meanwhile, their contemporaries, Pearl Jam, while not at their peak necessarily, are still releasing some very exceptional records. Those guys didn't dim with age, but holy shit. Stone Temple Pilots, especially on this album, they sound tired and sleepy and old, and listening to this album makes me feel tired and sleepy and old and God. Ozzy Osbourne's first album in 10 years sure sounds like an Ozzy record. I mean, honestly, that's all I can really say about it. It's kind of impressive that Ozzy can still sound as good as he does on this record, especially after all these years and the recent health problems Ozzy's been suffering with too. There's a part of me that listens to this record and is like, wow, that is very impressive. Go Ozzy, that's very cool. But there's also a part of me that listens to this record and is just like, yep, that sure is post No More Tears Ozzy, alright. Shrug? I mean, the record honestly doesn't sound that much different from the likes of, like, Scream or Black Rain, and, you know, however you feel about those albums is probably honestly how you'll feel about this one, because it's not terribly different. Ozzy's very set in his ways, but, you know, it's not a bad listen. It's decent, especially if you're an old Ozzy hat. Like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this. It's worth picking up, especially since this might be the last record we get from Oz. You know, I've seen people end it on worse notes, so you know what? It's alright. It's pretty okay. I will admit it was fun watching some of the, like, old hat Ozzy fans lose their shit over the Post Malone collabs. Oh my god. Oh, that was fun. Seeing everybody get all up in arms. Ah, what is this bullshit on my Ozzy record, man? It sounds like they had fun. Get over yourself.
I did not particularly care for the latest album from the Amity Affliction. While it shows drastic improvements upon their last record, Misery, I feel as though they have taken a safe bet and have not grown or developed in any particular fashion, but rather they've simply gravitated back to old trends to help repair their image from their previously unsuccessful record.
I concur with the senator from Vermont. Oh man, was I looking forward to this one. Some of you might remember Eden's last record, Vertigo, was able to sneak its way onto my best of the year list a couple of years back. So yeah, I definitely was paying attention when this one came out. And after hearing it, honestly, I'm kind of disappointed. Oh, I hate to say that, but Look, Eden was one of those artists whose minimalism and a low-key sense of musical aesthetics could be a little humdrum if you weren't necessarily into it, but the moments where he did bring it on that last record, man, he brought it hard. Like, absolutely striking crescendos on that last record. And this album, man, it just does not have that same vibe. The last Eden record could be dozy at the best of times, so if you weren't into that particular vibe, wow, this album will be straight up NyQuil. It's just, like, a lot of the best moments from Eden's last record aren't really here, and they haven't been replaced by anything, so it's just kind of a more mediocre experience all around. God, I hate to say that, people. Like, I really do. I was really pulling for Eden. You know, I really, really loved Vertigo, but man, it's not horrible, but man, I was not impressed at all by this, and that's a shame. Look, people, I am only including this record on the list so that I can bury them for the last time. But Crash, this album is marginally better than their last two. It's marginally better. And because it's marginally better, you have to praise it. Please praise it for being marginally better. It's marginally better. Please respect and show my marginally better. I mean, yeah, it's true. This record is better than the last two. It's still not fucking any good. This music still sucks ass. My last colonoscopy had better riffs. This band is still just clearly coasting on autopilot, and Ivan Moody's lyrics still rest somewhere between bathroom stall poetry and Spencer's Gifts joke book levels of insipid. Look, people, I'm just over this band. I am done. Talking about them brings me no joy, and I'm sure the one or two of you that are watching this who still can stomach this hot fucking garbage get no joy out of watching me wipe my ass with your precious senpai's face, so I am talking about this album only to introduce a new concept to you people. The Bin. The Bin is a place for artists who I will never talk about again. Ever. Period. There are already a few artists we've kind of informally put in the bin over the years, but you know what? Now I'm just formally introducing it to the show as a concept. You know, when a band gets to the point where I just literally do not care, either I do not care or I do not want to talk about them in any goddamn capacity, when I am just completely done with a band, they get put in the bin. Look, people, Five Finger Death Punch may get marginally better or worse over the years, but they're not gonna come back and make OK Computer. So you know what? I'm sick of fucking talking about them. I'm sick of being Mr. Angry Rah-Rah every time they fart out another bit of chud music for fuckboys and ass twats. So you know what? They go in the bin. Loathe. I heard a mountain of hype for this record when it dropped, and can I just say, it's nice to hear an album in 2020 with a lot of hype behind it. It actually lives up to the hype. Like, that's kind of been a problem, hasn't it? This record really does stand out. It's like if Code Orange and Deftones had a beautiful, shrieking, violent little baby. The absolute hardest of hardcore in its heavy moments, with mellower moments that are really soothing and pleasing and so ear-friendly. A brilliant blend of heavy and smooth that almost never feels disjointed or lopsided. Something that is crazy hard to pull off. Loathe, they really sound like the real fucking deal, people. It took everything, but as far as I'm concerned, it can take as much as it goddamn well pleases. Good stuff. Believe it or not, I was never a part of the Justin Bieber hate train back when that was running full steam back in the day. Really, I wasn't. I was never a defender, but I don't know, I felt like a lot of the hate didn't seem justified to me. He wasn't great, but at his worst, he just seemed boring, stupid, and kind of cringy. That was all I felt about Justin Bieber. He's kind of boring, he's kind of stupid, he's kind of cringy. Who cares? That's nothing to get mad about. But now, 10 years later, at the peak of his career maturity, yeah, he's still boring, stupid, and kind of cringy, only in completely different ways. People, again, this is one of those artists where I'm kind of out of my scope here, but why does Justin Bieber need to be a thing? Do we need Justin Bieber anymore? Because it really feels like we don't need Justin Bieber anymore. Like, again, he's another one of those artists, like, I don't hate him, but man, if he just went away forever, I so would not shed a tear. Especially after Yummy. Okay, like, I'm not a hater, but Yummy is a pile of my dick. Megan Thee Stallion is an artist that intrigues the ever-loving hell out of me. I gotta say, she has a really menacing flow, a lot of personality, and she definitely seems like she's got the brass to make it in the industry. I could see her becoming like the next biggest thing. But outside of like Hot Girl Summer and a few small moments here and there, I just haven't heard the thing that's gonna push her over the top. And this album isn't exactly that either. There's some decent stuff on this EP. Her potential is still definitely there. You know, if she ever does drop a full record, I will be intrigued as hell to see how that turns out. But so far, even though this isn't bad at all, like, there's some genuinely baller tracks on it, but she's not there yet. Her full potential has not been tapped. And man, I'm still intrigued to hear what that's going to sound like when we reach that point. But we're not there yet. Still, I'd say interesting stuff. I had a decent time with this. Debut record here from a new pop-punk outfit out of Brooklyn. Now this album, this turned out to be a pretty legit little jammer here. It's stamping and forceful and very, very poppy. It's that kind of like ultra simplistic, straightforward, no BS kind of pop punk that's just as syrupy and sweet as it is caustic and acerbic. A very promising debut. Fans of stuff like Mannequin Pussy or Bad Luck Party and the like, this is another one to add to that pile. It's kind of no frills, it's kind of nothing fancy, but y'all know I fuck with that kind of thing, and if you do too, this is something to get behind. If nothing else, I mean the song Mansplain. Whew. God, that's some good shit. That is a mood, isn't it, ladies? Like, holy fuck. You know, a few years back when Harry Styles' solo debut ended up making my best of the year list, I got some people in my mentions saying, no, Crash, like Harry Styles, whatever, but the real hype is behind Niall. Niall is the breakout One Direction dude. He's the guy. So I still haven't listened to his debut. Man, I just have no time to fit in stuff like that, guys, but I knew when I heard stuff like that I would have to snag his next record when he did it. You know, I get it. I totally get it. He's a justifiable and strong pop presence. He really does deserve to be out there. This record is a damn fine listening and a glittering piece of gorgeously produced pop. Like, this record sounds amazing. The production team definitely deserves a credit. I wasn't, like, blown off my ass or anything, though. I don't know. It's possible this one needs to do a bit more growing on me, but I still liked it. I still really enjoyed this record. I'm not head over heels for it necessarily. Still a strong pop release for the year. I feel like, again, people who are hyping this up, you're not wrong. I definitely understand it. I don't know, this record just didn't shine on with me as it has with others. I enjoyed it though. Definitely very nice, and I can definitely see Niall having a very promising career. I can give him this much, it sure as hell was better than Harry Styles' follow-up. I'm sorry, people, it bored me to tears. Ooh, man, this record. Hypnotic, entrancing, beautifully produced, and gorgeously performed. Just... this record is probably the most consistent record I've heard out of The Weeknd. Honest to God, that's something I've always kind of had problems with The Weeknd's... Well, with the other stuff I've heard in The Weeknd's catalog. Man, his albums would have some really nice bops on them. Starboy in particular had some slamming tracks, but he could never hold an album from back to front, They would always have major dips or just lots of sketchy and spotty places that weren't worth your time. But this record, man, he really put himself together. I loved the vibe he was putting on here. It's, not gonna be everyone's thing. It's like a skeezy, sort of questionable, kind of like scuzzy kind of vibe. Like the dude, God, how do I even describe this? This music is basically what plays inside of a burning strip club that's lost in the middle of the Twilight Zone. It's a weird aesthetic, but man, does Weeknd nail it, and he's nailed it on this record better than I think on any other, so... Man, just... Oh man, speaking of bangers, holy shit, this record fucking rules, man. An absolutely gorgeous blend of 70s disco and turn of the millennium pop. God, this thing is like if ABBA and the New Radicals were featured on a Spice Girls record. It's just... God, it's just mind-blowing. Every track on this record just fucking wrecks. Even some of the weird oddball stuff like Good in Bed. There's just so much charm and genuinely great songcrafting here that... I don't know, I can't even be bothered. There's some weird stuff on here, but I can't be bothered by it, because man, the good moments on this record are just so good. I mean, boys will be boys. Fuck. Man, I am just not used to pop music being this goddamn good. While not like a particularly deep album by any means, it does still do a good job at conveying a message and a mood. So, yeah, this ruled. People, no joke, this ruled. Again, another one of those albums where the hype is actually legit. Like, even if pop isn't your thing, I would still suggest at least giving this a try. This is probably gonna be one of the best pop albums that gets released this year. Like, it's one of the few pop albums that does also kind of feel like it's doing something new or doing something original, or it has its own identity and it has its own thing that it's trying to do. And Dua Lipa is an absolutely like crazy talented singer. Her lyrics are pretty decent too. That's not something you get off of a pop record. Like, man, I need to stop before this becomes a full review, but yeah, big album of the year contender here, people. No joke. Oh man, Igorrr. I remember the last time I had to tackle this band, I was probably a little too harsh on them. I'm willing to cop to that. Like, I don't know, just... all of the weirdness, all of the concentrated strangeness and crazy, that kind of took me off guard with their last record. But this one, well, it is still an Igorrr record. It still gets really weird in places. Like, really weird. Like, no joke, the closing track has Gregorian chants, dubstep drums, and Italian restaurant accordion solos. It's still an Igorrr record, for sure. But it's... also, weirdly enough, probably the most accessible they've ever been. I don't know how else to say it, but I don't know. There's like... it might just be because I'm not like shook by this band's strangeness anymore. Maybe I'm just more acclimatized to their weirdness, but I found this one being a lot more hooky and melody driven. This one was a lot easier to take in than some of their other stuff. I don't know. Again, maybe that could just be because I'm tainted and soiled by their filth now, but like, I don't know. This record was way easier to listen to than their last one. This one, it's still strange, but it's not impenetrable. God, I can't believe this one got lost in the shuffle. Look, I'm sorry, people, but with like the world exploding at the moment, it's just been hard to keep up here. People, let me reassure you, just because I didn't tackle this timely doesn't mean I didn't like it or anything like that. No, this thing was an absolute slaughter fest. Raging, searing, industrial, and ugly as all hell in all the right ways, too. But man, oh man, this record is not as good as Forever. I'm sorry, I hate to say that, but yeah, it is a bit of a step down, at least in comparison. Like, they really focused on the on this record. They really focused on making it heavy, which, I mean, Code Orange is great at that. I would want them to focus on that. But it also feels like in order to achieve that level of they kind of sacrificed that sense of melody that was also underleaning in a lot of their music. You know, it was never the forefront, but man, it feels like it was way more shirked aside on this record. It is almost just feels heavy for heavy's sake. It doesn't have quite the same ominous, leering, or like lingering dread in the back of your head kind of thing. It's just more kind of full frontal blah, 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 blah. But I mean, that doesn't like kill the record for me or anything. It's still a damn fine record, a damn heavy record, and you can still see that this band has a ton of potential. Maybe not the absolute best of the year by any means, but hey, is it a dark, dank, and destructive little throwdown? Hell yeah. Good shit. Okay. Number one, this album is way better than the self-titled. Thank Jesus. This record is at least better than the self-titled, you know? But, here's the thing about this record. You can tell that they did not want to repeat the same mistakes they made on the self-titled. They did not want to revisit that ground, so they went back to what they know. Deathcore. Deathcore, deathcore, deathcore. And this album is a deathcore record through and through. This is deathcore with a capital D. Deathcore, deathcore, deathcore. But that's also kinda all it is, too. It's just another deathcore record. And say what you want to about the last album. Believe me, I did. But like, that album at least had the willingness to take some risks. This one, no risks allowed. This is the plain cheese pizza and regular Coke of deathcore records. Like, again, I understand why they would want to make a record like that. They want to make sure they haven't completely forgot how to do things. But you also got to remember, you know, this band, when Eddie joined around You Can't Stop Me, you go back and listen to that record and you hear so much potential. You heard so much of what the band could have been, you know? That felt like a starting point to something that was going to be truly great. But man, they just did not follow through with it. And yeah, this record, I don't know, to hear them go so far back to basics, that also feels like a negative too. It's nice that they aren't doing the weird shit, but I was kind of hoping they would be more interesting than this. What we have in the end is just a very forgettable deathcore record. It's an okay deathcore record, but you've heard 1,000 deathcore records that sound just like this, and oh man, Suicide Silence, they should be doing better, is all I'm saying. I I don't hate this, I guess. Not as much as some other people I've spoke to about this record. It's not unlistenable or even entirely unenjoyable or anything, but like, again, I hate to be that guy, but why does Bombay Bicycle Club still need to exist? I feel like we've heard everything this band was capable of, like, 2 albums ago. There's just nothing on this record at all that really grabs me. I mean, to those of you that are still just head over heels for these guys, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. It's more of the thing you like. Don't listen to me, I guess, but if you aren't a member of the fan club or anything, I don't know, there's nothing outstanding here. You've heard better before. I've even heard better from Bombay Bicycle Club themselves, and there's just, I don't know, outside of cashing the check, there's just very little reason for this album to exist. I'm sorry. It did nothing for me. Japanese math rock on display here. Yeah, this new Tricot record is actually pretty solid. They do a good job of mixing things up in a genre that, let's be real here, is starting to get really, really, really fucking tired. But you know, I got more out of this record than I was expecting to get. It's got a little bit more of an edge than the 500th mathcore album you've heard this week. This is one of those math rock albums that actually understands how to slow things down at times, and it actually practices some decent dynamics. It has a sense of rising and falling and flow. It's not just a bukkake of scale exercises. But you know, if you aren't completely burned out on this genre just yet, this is worth checking out. It's interesting stuff. Loose recommendation. Sure. I honestly hadn't heard of these guys before this got requested, so I looked them up and saw that they were a horrorcore psychobilly outfit, and I was like, in 2020? Okay, let's see what this shit is about. Holy fuck. And then I listened to the record and, man, something with that kind of description really should be more interesting than this. This was a weird kind of alternative-leaning punk thing. I gotta admit, I was a little disappointed. A band with these descriptors should not sound so generic. Not awful for what it is, I guess. But, man, I can't help but think like the older stuff has to be more interesting than this. You know, I have to admit, I really like what I heard on offer here. The Guardian describes their kind of sound as like slacker indie, and you know, I get that. This definitely has that kind of vibe to it. There's an early to mid 90s sort of feel here. It's something halfway to the Breeders and halfway to Oasis. The music sounds like it should be scoring the background of an early, like, Richard Linklater film, or maybe one of Gus Van Sant's early 90s works. Good God, I am old as fuck. But you know, I got a nice little retro buzz off of this. Even still though, outside of the nostalgia, the music is very well played and it's a nice ride overall. I can give this a decent recommendation. This was something that did tickle my fancy in particular. Then again, I am pretty old. Another debut record here, this time from Detroit band Dogleg. This stuff is kind of emo adjacent, punk-ish. It's a post-hardcore kind of thing. They're hard to nail down, you know? They don't really peg themselves into one specific genre very easily. They have their toes dabbed into a lot of different places. It's sort of like if La Dispute were writing music more in the style of Neck Deep. Like, it's got the simple, hook-ready, punch to the music, but it's also like shouty and aggro and weirdly thoughtful than that stripe of music tends to be. It's an interesting sort of middle ground between a lot of these different styles. Fans of like Midwestern emo or pop punk of that certain flavor, stuff like American Football or Promise Ring, this might be something to check out. It's not too shabby. So, Huey Lewis and the News released a new album this year. Kinda. It's weird. People just... Okay, real talk. The circumstances surrounding this album are not great. It turns out this record has actually been kind of languishing in development hell since around 2017. Somewhere in the middle of session work, though, Lewis was diagnosed with Meniere's disease, and he suffered a dramatic hearing loss. But yeah, as a result of that and some other tragic behind-the-scenes issues, this is likely the very last Huey Lewis and the News album we'll ever get, and at 7 songs and 27 minutes long, it feels more like an EP than a full album, or if I can put a finer point on it, this is legitimately a record that is unfinished. I hate to say that, but holy hell, the way this album sounds cobbled together and underdeveloped, it's so unpolished. And it's an album I hate to put down so badly because, I understand why it turned out the way it did. It was nothing anyone could help here, but man, it's just so underdeveloped. I feel like this probably should have stayed in the vault. People, I just can't sugarcoat this. It's not like cringy or unlistenable, but man, Huey Lewis and the News deserved to go out on such a better note, It's one of those records that's just, it's sad for what it is, It's a shame. R.A.P. Ferreria, formerly known as Milo, is someone I've kept, light tabs on over the years. I've caught him on, a few stray projects here and there. His style has always intrigued me. This is my first, full sit-down with a project of his, and god damn it, this is the kind of hip-hop I really like to hear. It's very lyrical, it's very poetic, it's straight up jazzy and experimental in a lot of places, Ferreria also has just a very relaxed and very pronounced kind of flow. Again, I'm still pretty new to reviewing hip-hop, and I am not an expert by any means, but I can identify what I like in the genre, and I like this. It's experimental, it's bold, but it's not at all pretentious or overreaching. God, whatever Ferreria wants to call himself, I am all behind it. R.A.P. Ferreria, really good stuff. Am I saying that right? Am I supposed to pronounce, is it R.A.P. Ferreria? Or is it R.A.P. Ferreria? Am I supposed to be pronouncing, am I even pronouncing Ferreria right? Is it Feria? Or Faria? I mispronounce everything. Another indie rock band. Yet another indie rock band. I'm sorry, this just wasn't really vibing with me. This music sounds like it's trying to deliberately get itself into a commercial or a mumblecore soundtrack. I don't know, apparently there is some buzz behind this band. This is their first album in 3 years, and apparently in the right circles this was a thing with some hype behind it, but good God, I listen to this thing and I am just so not understanding why. This almost put me to sleep quicker than the Roger Eno record did. If you need swimmers by way of Rah Rah Riot or Atlas Genius, go nuts, I guess, but I got nothing else to say about it, I'm sorry. Heaven Shall Burn, a fantastic extreme metal band out of Germany that tends to write, very overtly politically driven metal. Think of them as the mellow death version of cattle decapitation. It's great, man. It's something I usually fuck with pretty hard, and you know, this album slaps pretty hard too, I gotta admit. I was feeling most of this record. It's a little long. I mean, yeah, it's a double album. It's intended to be long, but like, see, as much as I like Heaven Shall Burn, I wouldn't necessarily peg them as one of those bands that merits making a double album. Like, it's good stuff, but it's a little more Heaven Shall Burn than I would ever really want to ask for in one sitting. It is still Heaven Shall Burn and everything good that comes along with that, but like, I don't, it's a lot of Heaven Shall Burn. So be warned, this might not be the best place to start, but it is Heaven Shall Burn, and that is very rarely a bad thing. Spooky and ominous post-punk of a classic 80s sounding variety. Beautiful and punchy drum work and a nice clambery use of guitar strewn all throughout this record. The subtle and smooth synth work is also very unobtrusive and very well accentuated. It's a very pleasantly arranged album. It's definitely in the darker veins of stuff like The Cure or stuff like Bauhaus or Sisters of Mercy. It's very classic dark wave feeling. Very, very classic dark wave. Maybe even a little tried and true, you could say. If you're a veteran of the genre, I would say maybe there's not a lot of groundbreaking material here, but for a genre band that does seem very rooted in, you know, the dark sort of 80s synthwave, sort of goth, spooky atmosphere, you know, these guys understand it, and they do pull it off very effectively. Even if they aren't reinventing the wheel, their wheel is particularly round and smooth, so, you know, good stuff. This is that good Lydia Dietz shit right here. You know that old Steve Earle quote about how modern country artists just make hip-hop for people that are afraid of black people? Ta-da! You know what? Let me put it this way. This will help you understand what I sat through here. You guys fully understand how bad the Imagine Dragon syndrome was all throughout rock the last couple of years? Yeah? Well, imagine how that sounds on dipshit, Bud Light, truck fucker country. I can't even deny, this is the worst goddamn thing I've heard all year, and I will be shocked if anything tops this. This is easy, breezy, beautiful, the worst fucking record I'll hear in 2020, and if there is anything else that can top this, God... Between this and fucking Theory of a Deadman and Five Finger Death... 2020's over. I'm canceling it. 2020's over. It's canceled. Go home. 2020's canceled. I canceled it. I canceled it. Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. Some real country to talk about on this list. Oh, thank you. Thank Jesus, fuck, shit, god damn it, holy balls. You know, as I've gotten older and been exposed to the stuff that isn't this, I've kind of been able to come around on the genre a little bit. When it's bad, my god, can country be bad, but when it's good, holy shit, the stuff that is good soars exceptionally high, and that can definitely be said of Lil Big Town's newest record here. A really fantastic piece of ensemble-driven country, with its toes dipped ever so slightly into classic rock. When I listened to Nightfall, I just could not help but get big, like Fleetwood Mac vibes. It's romantic, lucid, and beautifully performed. The instrumentation is very sweet and smooth, and the production just glitters across this record. It's a glittery country record. It feels like actual music and not something that's trying to snag a Coors Light commercial. You know, it's... God, I'm still pissy about fuck you for requesting that. But no, this album is a fantastic example of what country can be when it's actually trying. Elegant, harmonious, and absolutely soothing. A wonderful record. More math rock. Goody. But real talk, I honestly actually did enjoy this album more than I'm letting on. Yeah, it's yet another math rock album. Jesus, are these things ever gonna go out of style? But this album, again, also has something unique. It has its own thing. It's more like math emo? This record is way more focused on hooks and more familiar song structures. And again, it focuses on actually producing something palatable as opposed to just bloat. See, math rock is kind of going through the same problem that prog had in the 70s and 80s. Yeah, some magnificent prog music came out of that scene, but at the same time, a lot of that music, or a core central problem to a lot of it was just flexing. It was literally just a bunch of people going around doing... Look what I can do! I know that's what people who like math rock are here to see. But, you know, I have to admit, as someone who has had to listen to a lot of this stuff over the years, it's nice to hear a math rock band that actually can remember, oh, hey, we're a band, too. Let's actually do band stuff and write songs and write hooks and, like, actually, you know, not just... Love me, dance, Gavin, dance! Okay, this is completely out of my wheelhouse. I mean, it's okay. It's got some decent moments on it. Bunny has a decent flow, and, you know, there's some decent beats and some nice sampling in here. I'm not into a lot of reggaeton or trap or some of the other stuff he's doing here, but there were parts of this album I liked, for sure, but also, just on top of that, mi español es muy malo, so, again, I'm kind of out of my element here. I don't know what else to tell you except, I didn't mind it. It's some good stuff on it. But again, I feel, from the biggest sense of an outsider looking in, I don't hate it. I don't know, is this a record I'm supposed to hate or something? Because I don't hate it, you know? There's some interesting stuff on here, and the bits I did pick up on are pretty decent. You know, I understand the hype behind Bad Bunny. He seems to be doing something that is very interesting and unique. I at least understand it to a degree. But, you know, ¿Dónde está la biblioteca? Corny, cheesy, horribly dated, and just mixed like hot garbage on top of all that. Like, seriously, this album sounds like hot shit. The drums and guitar are just downright muted. It sounds like everything's being recorded under a pile of pillows. Like, this record sounds like it was mixed in some kid's basement, and from what I understand, that should not be the case with this band. Apparently, these guys used to be kind of a big deal in the Norwegian sort of power prog scene. And Roy Khan, their lead singer, he used to sing for Camelot. But man, people, I just gotta be real. The thing I listened to here was just so flabby and splotchy and amateurish. Pretty oblivious, too. Like, this thing sounds like it missed out on the last 20, 30 years of prog and powered metal's development. Like, this thing, like, if you just used to freebase Queensryche in the 90s, there might be something here for you, but I'm sorry, this, I did not enjoy this. Okay, you guys want a 90s throwback that actually sounds pretty nice? Here you go. Higher Power. Though the 90s, the specific sound of the 90s that these guys are trying to capture is way different. Like, this record is Deftones as fuck, and I mean specifically 90s Deftones. This thing is all around the fur. It's almost like Deftones, or even a lot of those earlier nu metal progenitor bands. It sounds like those bands trying to do a pop punk sound. I'm not kidding. This record is My Own Summer by way of Can't Kick Up the Roots, and I know that sounds like it shouldn't work, but I'll be damned if they don't pull it off. Like, really well, in fact. I might just be showing my age here, but I cannot help but get a good buzz off of this record. It might just be my nostalgia speaking. Like, this is definitely a throwback, and a very intentionally minded throwback, but it's the best possible kind of throwback. A respect for being able to take old ideas and put a new spin on them. Like, goddamn. This is good stuff. This is the best kind of nostalgic throwback. I know nostalgia is kind of in, especially nostalgia for the 90s, but man, no, this was legit. This was very, very legit. Or maybe I'm just old, who knows. And that does it for this edition of FIMI. Thank you all for tuning in, and special thanks to those of you in the CTXO Discord for your picks. What's coming up next on the channel? I don't know, the world's blowing up. Let me get back to you. But thank you all again for watching. If you like what you see, feel free to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell while you're at it. In the meantime though, I am Crash Thompson, and I will see you in the next video.
Super special thanks to I Love Water and Brown Food. Yeah.